Hey guys, it's Natalie and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a January wrap up and I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in January. I'm also going to be including the 2 books that I read in December of last year because I still have not talked about those on my channel yet. I usually do my wrap-ups at the end of each 3-month season, but since I've been reading so much, I figured it's time for me to go back to doing monthly wrap-up videos, which you guys also really seem to enjoy, so let's get into it. So first off, in December, the first book that I read is The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox. This is an adult contemporary / romance novel, and it follows these 2 twin sisters who live very different lives. They are both bakers, but one works at the family bakery in a small town, and the other works on a baking show reminiscent of Cupcake Wars. And when one twin sister gets injured, they come up with an idea to switch places for the week. And naturally, chaos ensues. And the 2 twins find each other falling in love with someone from each other's lives, all while keeping their true identity a secret. I ended up giving this one 5 out of 5 stars. I couldn't think of a single thing that I didn't like about it. I think it's a perfect mix of The Parent Trap, Gilmore Girls, and Cupcake Wars, so if you love any of those things, then you'll definitely love this book. And it definitely has the Hallmark cozy movie vibe since it takes place partially in a small town. Overall, this was just a great, fantastic read, and I read it around Christmas, which was absolutely perfect, and honestly, I have nothing bad to say about it. So up next, I read another holiday-themed book, and that is In a Holidays by Christina Lauren. So this is an adult contemporary / romance book, and it follows our main character, Malin, who goes on a family trip with other friends of family and things like that to a trip every winter to this cabin. Every year, things basically go the same. They do the same holiday traditions. They eat the same holiday dishes. Until one day, she kisses one of the family friend's sons, and it kind of warps everything. Meanwhile, she's regretting her decision to kiss him because she has a huge crush on his brother. So after feeling like she's made a wrong choice and her family are on their way home from the cabin, they get into a car accident. But then Malin wakes up back on the plane before she had even started the trip. So this is like a holiday version of Groundhog Day essentially, and normally I don't love reading books where the same day happens over and over and over again. But the fact that this is a Christina Lauren title and it's a holiday romance really made me want to read it. I actually really enjoyed this. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I think it was a lot of fun, and you also feel really frustrated along with the character while she's kind of trying to figure out what she needs to do to keep the clock going forward. I really love reading about family-oriented books, especially like this one, and I think it has some really valid discussions about breaking tradition and trying new things as a family. So I really enjoyed this book overall. Like I said, 4 out of 5 stars. It was a solid, fun holiday read. Up next is a book that I have been putting off for some reason, reading forever, even though I've heard nothing but glowing reviews about it. I knew about this book as soon as I joined BookTube, so that was 5 years ago, but I'm so glad I finally decided to read it, and that is The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. This is a YA historical fantasy, and it follows our main character Vasya, who lives with her family on the edge of the Russian wilderness, and they love telling stories about the old gods and things like that. Vasya's mother passed away when she was a child, and a couple years later, when Vasya is a little bit older, her father remarries a woman that he met in Moscow. However, this woman is very shrill and skittish and very devout Christian. So she basically bans the stories about the old gods that Vasya and her family would tell around the fire. There are these creatures called the Domovoi that Vasya has the ability to see, and they're basically house guardians / demons, and Vasya has the ability to see them. Vasya fears that with her new devout stepmother in the house, she won't be able to leave offerings to the Domovoi or speak of the old gods, and bad things will happen. And boy, is she right. As her stepmother is trying to get rid of Vasya and send her off to a convent somewhere now that she's come of age, Vasya is fighting a larger fight behind the scenes, basically between the 2 oldest gods in their land, who are vying for power. This book is kind of hard to explain, but I hope I did an okay job. This book was so fantastic. I think that this book just blew me out of the water. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good. I love books that read like a fairy tale and have folklore entwined in them, and this book is exactly that. The writing is just so stunning and so immersive. I had a really hard time putting this book down, especially because you just feel like you're in the wilderness, and there's magic and shadows looming, and it's just so good. I genuinely can't believe I put this book off for as long as I did. It was just a masterpiece. This is definitely one of my new favorites. Highly recommend it. I think this was a great way for me to start my reading year. I wanted to start challenging myself in 2023 to read the oldest books on my Goodreads TBR and my physical TBR. So the first one that was the oldest book on my TBR on Goodreads that I started in 2019 is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I'm pretty sure not too long ago I told myself I was never going to read John Green again, but somehow I ended up reading this book. I think that I would love John Green if I was still like an angsty teen. I would eat this up. I would love it. But as an adult now, I can kind of look at his writing and it's just very pretentious to me. But I'll get into that. Let me tell you what it's about first. This book follows our main character, Aza, and she basically used to be friends with this kid who was the son of a millionaire. And when his father goes missing, she goes on a mission to get the prize money and split it with her best friend. This book was not what I was expecting at all. I thought this was going to be super mystery heavy, but the missing millionaire plot kind of took the back burner and it focused largely on our main character and her friendship with her friend. This book was really difficult to read because our main character, I believe she's diagnosed with OCD, and she has very spiraling, intrusive thoughts, and she does a lot of things in accordance with those thoughts. But yeah, like I said, I find John Green's writing very pretentious and therefore to me unlikable. Not to say that all pretentious writing cannot be enjoyed by me. I also find his books to be very formulaic and almost predictable. There's always a couple in the books, and one of them is very whimsical and mysterious and so different and not like other girls or not like other guys, and then the other one is kind of just trailing behind them like a puppy. I also didn't love the friendship between our main character and her best friend. I just don't think it was a very supportive relationship, and I found it to be a little bit toxic. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't horrible either. I just don't love John Green, so I was at a little bit of a predisposed feeling before I read this book. So I'm not going to say I recommend or unrecommend it. I think it has good representation for the mental illness that's displayed here, and I think it overall has a good message, but it's not an author that I think I want to read from again. So another reading goal I've set for myself in 2023 is that I want to read more continuations of series that I have started and not finished, because I'm probably in the middle of like 20 different series right now. So I finally picked up Kingdom of the Blazing Phoenix by Julie C. Dow. This is the sequel to Forest of a Thousand Lanterns, which I read a couple years ago and I absolutely loved it. I'm still head over heels for it, so I was super excited to continue on in the series. It is only a duology, but there is a third book that kind of takes place in the same universe, but it's with different characters. I can't say too much about this book because it is the second in a series and it would give away a lot of what happened in the first book, but I ended up giving this book 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. As usual, I love Julie C. Dow's writing. It's so immersive and plush, and her universe is so well crafted. She does a really good job at making characters that you want to root for but also strangle at the same time. This book took a very different direction than the first book, and there is a different main character and, narrator this time, which was a surprise, but I ended up really, really liking it. So overall, I really loved this duology. I gave both books 5 out of 5 stars. It was a perfect 10 out of 10 for me, and I just absolutely love it. So up next is a book that I wasn't expecting to get to anytime soon. It's kind of one of those books that I'm just like, oh, I'll get to it eventually. It's not very high on my TBR. This book I actually read for Kayla over at Books and Lala's Buzzwordathon 2023 challenge. So every month she picks a prompt and says, okay, read a book with this word in the title, etc. So the first prompt in January was to read a book with life or death in the title, or lived or died, etc. So I picked up the only book on my shelf that has those words in it, and that is Cleopatra, A Life by Stacy Schiff. This is a biography about Cleopatra, and it basically just chronicles her entire life, her rise to power, everything like that. I used to love history when I was in high school, and it was my favorite subject and my favorite class, but I kind of fell out with it over the years because it didn't apply to my life or it didn't apply to the jobs I was working at. So this book kind of felt like slipping into an old comfortable shoe. This book was actually really fantastic. I ended up giving it 5 out of 5 stars. I think I always forget with history that there is so much drama involved, and I love reading about drama, and Cleopatra's life was chock full of it. From Caesar to Mark Antony to her death, there's a lot of drama. You can tell that the author has so much sharp wit and charm and just great storytelling capabilities overall. This book chronicles a lot also how Cleopatra was so undermined and so ostracized as a female ruler. Even though female rulers in Egypt weren't a rarity, Cleopatra still managed to blaze a trail through history. Cleopatra was able to command an army, control a currency, create delicate relationships with Rome that no other ruler had been able to do before. And she was incredibly intelligent, extremely well educated. She had one of the best educations that you could possibly get at the time in Alexandria. And overall, this book just floored me. I probably spent a good 2 weeks reading this book just because it's one of those books that you can't just kind of fly through because there's like footnotes and words that you don't know and things like that. So it's definitely the kind of book that you kind of have to sit down with and almost study. But I think that made me enjoy it even more because I was able to spend so much time with this book. I also really enjoyed reading this because my boyfriend is a huge history nut, and so we were able to just talk endlessly about Cleopatra, Augustus Caesar, Julius Caesar, Mark Antony, Cicero. We were able to talk about so much, and it's something that we haven't really been able to talk about before because I didn't know anything about it. So I think that opened up a whole new mode of communication for us, and I absolutely loved it. So yeah, highly recommend this book if you are a history nut or you just want to learn about a badass female ruler. Highly recommend this book. So the next and last book that I read in January is by my favorite author, and that is A Wilderness of Stars by Shea Ernshaw. This is her newest release, and I recently got my hands on it and I immediately wanted to read it because she is one of my auto-buy authors. This book follows our main character, Vega, and she lives in what seems like the Old West the entire time that you're reading this book. She lives alone with her mother in a cabin in a valley until one day when her mother passes away and she sees a sign in the stars from her ancestors. It leads her on this huge journey across the land to unlock a 100-year-old secret that has been held in her family and by her ancestors for generations. I can't say too much about it without giving it away, but this book just absolutely floored me. This was fantastic. I really loved that our main character has so much knowledge of the stars and astronomy. I loved her willingness to just fight and take anything on. She was just no holds barred, just a fantastic character, as all of Shea Ernshaw's characters are. I expected nothing less. This was so good. The plot twist at the end and everything that gets revealed is just something that I would never expect. I kind of thought this might be kind of like a witchy book because that's what Shea Ernshaw typically writes about in her books. This one almost took like a sci-fi curveball, and I absolutely loved it. So overall, this book is fantastic. If you love anything about astronomy and space and things like that, you would absolutely love this book. It was so good. Highly recommend it. Definitely one of my new favorites now. So those are the 7 books that I read in December and January. Like I said, I'm going to be doing more frequent wrap-up videos, so at the end of every month like I used to do. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for those. If you guys want to see some more frequent content from me, I actually made a book TikTok in the beginning of January, and I will link it down below. I post there every single day, once or twice a day. And you'll likely see some things on there that I don't post about on my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Leave a like and subscribe down below, and leave a comment and let me know what your favorite book of 2023 has been so far. I really want some more recommendations this year, especially because I dropped off so much with reading last year. I feel like I'm a little out of the loop, so let me know some books I should read in the comments below. Have a good day. Bye!